Ahead and call the agenda meeting to order. Commissioners on the phone, do you have your permission to affix your signatures to the orders or your initials?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. First up, we have the approval of the minutes from August 15th agenda meeting. You all have seen those. Are there any additions or corrections?
No.
Nope. No.
All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
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 Minutes are approved 5-0. Today, following agenda, there will be a presentation by OPC and the Community Action Agency presentation. But we are going to have a closed session, so we're going to do that before we have the presentation. So we'll go into closed session, then we'll come back out and have the presentation after that. First up, tariffs and new orders. Number one, file numbers GO 2019-0115 and GO 2019-0116. This is in the matter of the application of Spire, Missouri, Inc. to change its infrastructure system replacement surcharge in its Spire, Missouri East and West service territories. The Commission had previously issued a report and order in Spire's ISRIS cases. A couple of weeks ago, the Commission granted a limited request for rehearing on what effect the net property tax values would be on revenue requirement calculations. The company, staff, and OPC submitted a stipulation and agreement identifying the amount of property tax expenses that should be included in both Spire East and West revenue requirements. Under the terms of the agreement, the difference between the amount of property tax expense included in the current ISRIS and its recalculated amount will be included in the annual reconciliation. And I recommend that we approve the report and order on rehearing, which includes the agreed to property tax expense calculations, and that would be version 2. Commissioner Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm not going to go into much discussion regarding the overall case. We've decided this, but I do want to make a statement that these numbers were in the last case. I believe that we're making the right decision, and I support the order.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
I support the order. I do have, Judge, there were, in the last version, there were some changes, I believe, on pages 32 and 46, but they weren't red lined, so
I think they were blue lined.
Well, I didn't.
There was a line, an was removed,
Okay.
and then a footnote was moved to a different part of the sentence.
Okay.
They were really very minor edits.
All right. Well, I support the order. I would like, to the previous order, I had a concurring opinion, and I'd like that concurring opinion to be attached to this order as well. I've got copies here if anybody. It's the same concurrence that I drafted and submitted with regards to the prior order, and it's really just making the point that following the Western District's direction in footnote 5 that staff and the company failed to make the proper methodological comparison between a systematic redesign and a patchwork replacement of only the worn out cast iron and steel. And then second, I'd just like to make the point again that Spire's Neighborhood Main and Service Line Replacement Program is good public policy, and I strongly support, to the extent anybody cares or is listening, strongly support a statutory change to make sure that this type of systematic replacement program meshes with the ISRA statute, which I don't believe it currently does. So with that, I support the order.
Okay. Commissioner Root.
Yeah, I'll support the order.
Commissioner Coleman.
I support the order.
All right. All those in favor of approving the order version 2 say aye.
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 Approved 5-0. Thank you, Judge. Next up, file number EC 2019-0168. This is Jill Covington Beatty, complainant, v. Union Electric Company, DBA Ameren, Missouri, respondent. This is in a report and order on the complaint case. After reviewing the record and the testimony, I don't think that Ameren violated any statute, rule, or tariff in connection to its service to Ms. Beatty, and I recommend that we approve the order as drafted version 2. Commissioner Kinney.
I support the order.
I support the order as well.
As do I.
I concur.
All right, all those in favor of approving the order as drafted, version 2, say aye.
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 Order is approved 5-0. Next up, file number EO 2019-0391. This is in the matter of the application of Union Electric Company, DBA Ameren, Missouri, for authority to sell or transfer a portion of its franchise works or system to SSM Health Inc., DBA SSM Health St. Louis University Hospital. This is an order granting Ameren's amended application to sell a transformer to SSM Health St. Louis University Hospital for approximately $15,346.96. The transformer serves an oncology facility that SSM Health wants to include in the electrical distribution system for the rest of the campus. We've reviewed the verified application and staff's recommendation to approve the transfer. I don't think that the sale or transfer will impact Ameren's ability to provide service. The record shows the sale won't have a negative impact on any other customers, and I recommend that we support the order granting the application to sell the asset version 2. Commissioner Kinney.
I support the order.
The sale is not detrimental to the public interest. I support the order.
I am in support as well.
I'm in support.
All right, all those in favor of approving the order as drafted, version 2, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Order is approved 5-0. Next up, file numbers ER 2019-0374. This is in the matter of Empire District Electric Company's request for authority to file tariffs increasing rates for electric service provided to customers in its Missouri service area. The Empire District Electric Company filed tariffs to increase its rates for electric service. This order suspends those tariffs until July 11th, 2020, and directs notice, sets a September 16th deadline to intervene, and schedules a pre-hearing conference for Tuesday, September 17th at 10 a.m. I recommend that we approve the orders drafted, version 1. Commissioner Kinney.
I support the order.
I support the order as well.
As do I.
I'm in support.
All right, all those in favor of approving the orders drafted, version 1, say aye.
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 Orders approved 5-0. And final order today. File number GR 2019-0077. This is in the matter of Union Electric Company, DBA, and Missouri's tariffs to increase its revenues for natural gas service. Last December, the Commission approved an interim rate reduction for Ameren, Missouri's gas customers pending the outcome of this general rate case. There were 2 stipulations and agreements that were submitted by the parties that resolved all disputed issues. The Commission held an on-the-record hearing last week on the unopposed first amended stipulation and agreement and the agreement between the company and the Missouri School Board Association. Reviewing the record in the agreements, I think that the agreements result in rates that are just and reasonable, and I support the order that approves the 2 stipulation agreements and the compliance tariffs. I recommend that we approve the order version 2. Commissioner Kinney?
I am in support.
Commissioner Hall?
I support the order as well. At the hearing, I had a whole bunch of questions and concerns about a number of issues, but those concerns were addressed. I think the ROE and capital structure, the ROE range and the capital structure are reasonable. I still believe that it would make sense for the Commission to expressly reinstate an ISRIS, but all the lawyers in the room seemed to indicate that that was not necessary. So I presumably am incorrect in that approach. I very much appreciate the energy efficiency programs and weatherization programs as well, though I would certainly support expanding those programs. I think the weather conservation adjustment rider seems to be an improvement over what we did in Spire. What do we call it? It was called the volume indifference reconciliation to normal. What's it going to be called now?
Distribution cost adjustment.
Distribution cost adjustment. Okay. I also support the changes to the billing statements, promoting transparency, and I also applaud the move from declining volumetric rates to a flat rate. So I support the order and applaud the parties for their ability to come together on the agreement.
Sure.
Echo a lot of what Commissioner Hall had said. I'm in support, even though I do like to disagree with all the lawyers in the room as well. But I will be in support of the issue.
Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Coleman?
I'm sorry. I support the order.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. All those in favor of approving the orders drafted version 2, say aye.
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 Orders approved 5-0. And thank you, Judge, for your work on that order.
Thank you.
All right, we'll discuss scheduling before going into closed session and then come back for the presentation. Obviously today, as just mentioned, we have the OPC Community Action Agency presentation following agenda. Tuesday, August 27th, we have an evidentiary hearing in EO 2019-0067. This is on KCP&L GMO's Fuel Adjustment Clause Prudence Review. That's at 9 a.m. in room 310. Wednesday, August 28th, we have agenda at 9 a.m. Wednesday, September 4th, we have agenda scheduled at 1. However, I have a conflict at 1 that day and would ask if we would consider 8:30 that day. Does anyone have an objection to 8:30? Does that clear you for your stuff too?
I'm fine with it.
Commissioners on the phone, is 8:30 on Wednesday the 4th okay?
Correct. That works for me.
All right, then we will move that to 8:30. Monday, September 9th through Tuesday, September 10th, we have an evidentiary hearing in GO 2012-0322. That's Summit Natural Gas's application for approval of its cost allocation manual. That's at 9 a.m. in room 310. Wednesday, September 11th, we have agenda at 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, September 17th, we have an evidentiary hearing in WA 2019-0185. That's Osage Utility Operating Company's application to acquire certain water and sewer assets and a CCN. That's at 9 a.m. in room 310. And then Wednesday, September 18th, we have agenda at 9:30 a.m. Any questions or requests or comments concerning scheduling through the 18th of September?
No.
No.
All right. We do have some closed discussion today on litigation, so I will move that we go into closed session under section 610.021 sub 1 RISMO. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor of going into closed session to discuss litigation, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we will move into closed session.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I am not going to be able to call back in on the community action presentation, but I would like to thank the parties. I found that very compelling to see the poverty rates in our state and what a family of 4 goes through. But I just wanted to thank them. I read through it, and I appreciate the information.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So with that, we'll go ahead and clear the room, and then at the conclusion of our closed discussion, we will come back in for the presentation.
Shall we call back in?
Dr. Mark, take it away.
Good morning, Commissioners. I want to introduce Donna Fogarty, Executive Director of the Missouri Community Action Network, and Jessica Fogarty, Jessica Hoey, sorry, the Public Outreach and Community Outreach Director with the network. Two women that have devoted a greater part of their professional lives to making the world a better place. The talk here is couple copies of lunch. Sorry, Dean. Oh, man. There you go. Oh, thanks. And I've got some handouts too. Community Action Network is a networked organization of nonprofits scattered throughout Missouri. For our purposes, they help utilize both LIWAP, weatherization, and LIHEAP dollars. So without further ado, ladies, take it away.
Again, I'm Donna, and thank you so much for having us here today, and we appreciate the time this morning to talk about Community Action Network here in Missouri. We're going to talk a little bit about, just do an overview of the national movement for community action. Many times folks don't realize that a community action is in your backyard, let alone it's a national network, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then talk about our organization, which is a little bit different from a state agency or from one of our CAAs throughout the state. Jess is going to go over Living Near the Line, a typical Missouri family who's struggling to kind of make ends meet. And then how we do LIHEAP and LIWAP in the state through the CAAs and what a difference those programs make for many families. And then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There we go. So what is community action? It is a nationwide network. Throughout the nation, there are over 1,000 community action agencies, and it's a national movement that started in 1964 with the War on Poverty. There, that worked. Yeah. All right. Most community action agencies are focused in these domains that you see here: employment and workforce development, health and nutrition, energy efficiency. Again, any of those domains that are going to help a family start thriving versus struggling in poverty. So all of these areas intersect to help a family or help an individual be more successful in what they do in life. Talk a little bit about community action. What makes a community action is basically the CSBG dollars that each agency gets. Again, we're 1,000 community action agencies nationwide. CSBG, you can see in the center, is kind of the center of all of our funding. It's a block grant that's administered and managed by states. It distributes funds to a nationwide network. Those CAAs receive those dollars to be able to fund local initiatives and meet local needs. We are in urban, rural, and suburban counties all over the United States. Again, a lot of times in the rural counties, we are the only human service organization for folks to come to. We utilize the CSBG funds to address those specific needs, and that's in relation to a community needs assessment that each agency does at least every 3 years. That community needs assessment points the agency kind of in that direction for the next 3 years to meet those local needs. So they're going to have
that needs assessment will determine the amount of the block grant that each agency will get.
Typically, since '98, I believe, the block grant's been flat. So the same amount of funding goes to the agencies each year. But what happens with that needs assessment is it's the driver for whether you want to switch your resources into some other area that the community is saying that they need. So, and they're all within those domains. So, say for example, the needs assessment shows that you just need more affordable housing, which is pretty common. Obviously, I don't know any community that doesn't need more affordable housing, but typically that is some of the responses, that's your number one need. So the agency is going to choose to use those dollars more for housing projects. Again, we have 19 community action agencies across the state, and those agencies, again, do that needs assessment every 3 years to help determine their next 3-year plan for those resources. The CSBG Act also requires that agencies have a tripartite board structure, which means that a third of our board members are from the public sector, a third are from the private sector, and then a third have to be a low-income representative, so that those who are active in the community and want a voice can have a voice in how those services are distributed. The needs assessment also prevents duplication and, of course, incorporates that community feedback in strategic planning. Like I said, typically that needs assessment will drive the services for the next 3 years. So what is Missouri CAN? Our office is a little bit different. Like I said, we are the state association for the 19 agencies. Our mission is to advocate for low-income Missourians and then to build capacity within our network for our agencies. So typically a lot of our time is spent on public policy, on advocacy for the low-income Missourians, and then strengthening our agencies by providing technical assistance and training.
The advocacy would be where?
So we do advocacy at both the state and the federal level. We have in the past few years been really focused on the State General Assembly, and I'll talk in a little bit about what we call our 5 elements of poverty and how we organize our work. We do have a national lobbying group called the National Community Action Foundation, and our national lobbyist David Bradley is working on federal reauthorization of bills like the Community Services Block Grant, the Weatherization Assistance Program, and that sort of thing.
But advocacy at the municipal or county level?
That's not really something that we at the State Association have been so involved with. Certainly our 19 community action agencies in their service areas may get involved.
They work with their local governments. I come from an agency, from agency work. I just started here about a year ago at the State Association, and at your local agency you're going to have that representation on your board and work very closely with them.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And this map just shows where all of our agencies are. We've got over 3,000 staff statewide with a combined annual budget of over $230 million for our agencies. We are, Community Action Network is a membership organization as well. We've got over 1,000 individual members. That includes our CAA staff, our allies and supporters for the local organizations, and then associate members and the Head Start Policy Council and CAA board members. And Jess, again, is going to talk about the 5 elements of policy and how we organize our public policy work.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dawn. So as I mentioned just in response to your question a couple minutes ago, the work that we do at Missouri Community Action Network is focused in what we call the 5 elements of poverty. And that is something that our state association developed several years ago in response to a way to organize the work that we do and really message that and present that to our stakeholders and to the general public. And so those 5 elements that we organize our work in are economic and family security, education, food and nutrition, healthcare, and housing and energy. So what we often laugh about is that we say we focus our efforts in those areas, but as you can tell, those 5 areas include many different things. So it can be difficult to focus per se on any one area. And we know that in looking at legislation filed at the state level in the past 5 years and comparing each year from 2015 to 2019, we've seen a significant increase in the number of bills that legislators file that relate to our 5 elements of poverty. We do work with a lobbyist that contracts with us, but then both Don and I are very involved in policy and advocacy efforts as well. So we work closely with our lobbyist and with our network of community action staff on these 5 issue areas to really determine where we can focus our efforts. And definitely housing and energy, particularly the low-income home energy assistance program as well as weatherization, are 2 very key areas that our agencies focus on that we'll certainly talk about in more detail as we go through this presentation. So a few of the logos that you might have seen around your time, these are brands and programs that community action agencies in Missouri and around the country run. So Head Start, many of you may know that many Head Start programs, both in Missouri and around the country, are run by community action agencies. Certainly there are some non-CAAs who run Head Starts, but many of the Head Start programs in Missouri are actually run by community action agencies. Of course, we've talked about LIHEAP and weatherization. There's a supplemental nutrition assistance program. Of course, we don't administer that at a CAA, but we certainly connect folks who receive services at our agencies to programs like TANF and SNAP. And then we have a few of our agencies that run Title X program through the Missouri Family Health Council, of course, a federal grant as well. And then we at Missouri Can have something called the Poverty Simulation, the Community Action Poverty Simulation. I think simulations are becoming more and more popular now, but we like to call our CAPS, or Community Action Poverty Simulation, one of the originals. And we've sold hundreds, if not thousands, of kits both in the country and even around the world, so that people from all walks of life have gone through this simulation, which lasts for about 3 hours. There's a series of 15-minute weeks that are to emulate a month of what it's like to live in poverty. And when you arrive to participate in this simulation, you're given a family profile. And so you participate as part of this family, and you have to follow through this profile to figure out how you're going to make it in this month of what it might be like to live in a low-income family. And so for a lot of people who complete that, when they get done, they really have a much better understanding of what it might be like. So if any of you are ever interested in participating in a poverty simulation, please do let us know. We'll leave our contact information, and we'd be happy to talk with you more about that.
Commissioner Coleman, this is Daniel Hall. Is that the simulation that you led at NARUC?
Yes, I was waiting for the opportunity.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And say thank you so much. The Community Action Agency of Missouri has done us proud. As I am the chairman of NARUC, our National Regulatory Association organization. I am the chairman of the Committee on Consumers and the Public Interest. And at our last conference back last month, my committee put on the poverty simulation that, of course, was purchased from Missouri's Community Action Agency. And we really appreciated it. It was well received. We, of course, have the license, and we'll be putting on more of these poverty simulations. But we've got rave reviews of what people took from that and the understanding of living in a very short time frame, walking in the shoes of some people that are dealing with real low poverty levels. So we really appreciate the work that you've done in that arena.
Well, thank you so much. That's really outstanding to hear. We just love to hear those stories.
Yeah, and I took part in
Great.
the simulation, and Commissioner Coleman, I think, she even understated. It was very well received, and I don't know the exact number, but I mean, there was in excess of 200 people
Wow.
involved, and with a waiting list of folks. I mean,
Wow.
it was well done, well received, and very valuable.
Outstanding.
It's wonderful to hear.
I have a question. So you sell these, is that a revenue stream for you, or are you providing them a cost, or
It is a revenue stream for us, and we've actually been having quite a bit of discussion about this within our state association. It is 28% of our annual operating revenue at Missouri Can, which is great so that we don't have to totally rely on federal funding to do our work. And it is part of what helps to fund our advocacy and policy work, because of course we can't do that work with any kind of state or federal funding. But just as importantly, it's also an opportunity to build awareness and to build advocates. So of course, as you all have testified to, we are building awareness about poverty through the simulation, and we also hope that ultimately we're building advocates in our efforts to end poverty, to help bring them along in the work that we do. Perhaps people go through a simulation and then they find out they want to get more involved maybe in their local community action agency to volunteer or to do other work.
And Commissioner Roop, I'd like to note that the Mississippi Public Service Commission has since purchased the program, and I think several other commissions will reach out to do so at this point. And I've even had corporate participants that were there that day say that this is something they believe will be very valuable to their employees, and intend to also purchase a license to do this. So it was very well received, as Commissioner Hall stated.
Great, thank you.
And with the utilities sitting in the room, I was recently contacted by a utility provider in Kentucky, and they want to do that simulation with their customer service team, and they're going to start doing that.
Well, thank you so much for that feedback. So just
Thank you.
Quickly an overview of some of the impact that community action has throughout the state. So this is from our National Association for State Community Services programs. Just when you look at community action agencies in Missouri, the 19 that we have, what impact did they have in the most recent fiscal year that data is available? So of the folks that our agency served, 41% of those families were classified as being in severe poverty, or 50% below the federal poverty guidelines. So that's pretty significant. Also, our agency served approximately 4% of all Missourians, which is about 265 Missourians, so individuals and families. And then the way in which we leverage our dollars to show how effective our agencies are, for every dollar of community services block grant funding that our agencies received, they leverage $13.57 from other sources, which is always great to hear. So we like to share those stats just to share how effective our agencies can be.
You're including volunteer hours in that? If you back out volunteer hours, where does that number drop to?
I knew somebody would ask that question. The National Association did not provide that data, and I did have that question myself because volunteer hours can add up pretty quickly. And I actually have had in the back of my mind, I should ask them how much of that includes volunteer hours. So now I think I will do that now that I have actually been asked that question. So thank you for that.
And Head Start, really, they're charged with that in kind for their program. So I know that they track that pretty tightly. So that's why that's in there.
So moving on, let's talk about an average Missouri family. So one of the commissioners I know who had to leave the call mentioned that he had looked at the PowerPoint beforehand, which is great to hear, and that he appreciated the information about living near the line. So we like to share this just to show, if you're not familiar with how this might work and what some people might live through day to day, this really provides a really great overview of what things might look like. So meet an average Missouri family. So this family, we've got Rob and Stacy. They both work. They have 2 children. So Carson is in 4th grade at the local public school, and Amy is 3 and enrolled in preschool. So first we'll talk about how much they work and the new minimum wage. So Rob works full-time at 40 hours a week, and Stacy works part-time. Rob works full-time at 40 hours. Stacy works part-time at 30 hours. And we calculated this with the new minimum wage, which of course is $8.60 an hour, and so that's what they're both making in their positions. So what does that mean for this family? It means that their annual income for this family of 4, and if they work 52 weeks a year and take no vacations, because a lot of folks who get paid minimum wage, they don't get to take PTO and get paid. They've got to work to earn that money. So this family's annual income is $31,304, and that's it. And what is surprising to hear about that is that puts this family of 4 actually above the federal poverty level for the 2019 guidelines. That level right now is at $25,750. And so that That data, of course, as you probably know, is used to help figure out if families or individuals are eligible for certain safety net programs. So because this family is above the federal poverty level, in some cases they may or may not be eligible for some of the assistance programs that even community action agencies provide. So that's really important to keep in mind as we go through this. So you might be wondering, how is this family going to make it work? There's 4 of them. How can they possibly survive on minimum wage with the amount of money they're bringing home and all the different common expenses the family might need to consider? So you can think about as we go through this, and we've divided each section into those 5 elements of poverty that I talked about earlier. So first off, let's talk about housing. So this information is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition from their annual Out of Reach report. So that's where we get this data from. So in Missouri, fair market rent for an average 2-bedroom home is $832 a month. And so we use that figure, and that makes the housing cost for our family just about $10,000. And then you can see at the bottom here, now that family is left with $21,320. Then we'll move to food and nutrition. So this is the low-cost food plan for a family of 4 in Missouri. That data is from the USDA from their 2019 figures in April, and that adds up to about $854 a month. So their annual food costs are just over $10,000, and that puts them at now having $11,000 left for their annual budget. Then we'll move to childcare. So Amy, who's their 3-year-old, her preschool average is around $15 a day. And that data is from Missouri Department of Social Services. Now, for those of you who have children, you know that $15 a day for childcare is really not that expensive at all. Even in Missouri, I lived in Chicago for 14 years before moving back here. So this is just a significantly low number. But it makes their annual child care cost still $3,900, and now they're down to just about $7,000. So it's getting pretty tight here. Now we move on to healthcare. We all know how expensive healthcare costs can be. Rob does have employer-sponsored healthcare at about $475 per month for the family of 4, which again, all things considered, I think is not necessarily that expensive depending on the situation. And that data is from the Kaiser Family Foundation. So that's a total of about $5,700 annually, and now this family is down to just about $1,500. So they're really cutting it close. We haven't even talked about utilities though, which of course is very important to everyone in this room. And data from the American Coalition for Clean Energy shows that energy costs for a family earning under $30,000 per year averages 26%. So that makes our family's energy burden about 22%. And that means for their energy and utilities, they're spending about $6,800 or $6,900 per year. With that level of expense, they're now in the red, and so they're negative $5,500.
Does that include gas? Like for transportation and everything, fuel costs?
Oh, no, not for fuel cost.
Home heating and cooling.
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't even gotten to that part yet. So now they're already in the red, so they don't have enough money, and so we've arrived at the bottom line. We've
But
considered.
does that include all utilities?
It should include all utilities, yes. Mm-hmm. So now we're about negative $5,500, or needing $5,500 more than what they're earning every year. And then you can see at the bottom, this does not include transportation to work or transportation elsewhere, school supplies, clothing, toiletries, retirement. I mean, saving for retirement is not even something that most families in this situation can think about. And then also emergencies. And in the past year, there's been a lot of data recently about the average sort of American family may not have more than $400 in set-aside expenses in case there is an emergency. So we've all heard about so many Americans living paycheck to paycheck. And that is definitely the situation with our family here, if not even more of a dire situation. So we always like to share this story to show that this family, again, is living near the line, but they're still considered above the poverty line based on federal poverty guidelines. And what we do know about data from the U.S. Census Bureau is that there's about 793,000 Missourians who actually live below the poverty line, who are in worse of a situation than Stacy and Rob are. So you can imagine how difficult this can be for families who really are trying to do everything they can. They're trying to work, they're trying to find a better job, but it's still so difficult to make ends meet. And that is why we're hearing more and more stories of families and people in families who are working more than one job, because while they might have a job, that job only pays a minimum wage or a little bit more, making it really difficult to pay all their bills. So we just like to share this information to show what so many families in Missouri and really across the country are experiencing, and why the programs that community action agencies offer are just so critical. So any comments or questions about living near the line? Yeah.
I have a couple. So, what is the dollar value on falling below the poverty line, becoming eligible for SNAP and TANF and all the different CHIPS and all the different programs out there that are there, and removing the child care cost and stuff, where you always hear about is there an incentive to get a raise? Is there an incentive to work more because you're going to lose? So if they were to fall below, what would they qualify for, and what dollar value does that come to, or is that?
I mean, it varies.
Can you
Size,
quantify
yeah.
that?
It varies so widely with family size, but to kind of get back to that whole cliff effect, when especially, and it applies mostly to females in the workplace who are working parents, they do reach that cliff, the edge of that cliff pretty quickly, like somewhere around $12 an hour. And then it's just, they fall off because they don't qualify for any of those things that allow them to work, like the child care. And so it does become a decision, and I've seen it many times in my career. A woman has to make a decision, especially when it is a single parent home. Usually, do I not take that raise? Do I, actually go back to my old position, because now I can't pay for these things that allow me to actually just come into work and work every day.
So in the counseling, when you sit down with families, do you walk through those calculations with them and try to see where they fit, so they understand, okay, this is if this happened, this is if you remove this, and try to help them understand that? And
there's a lot of work too with low-income families and helping them establish their social supports, because many times families who are living in poverty, they get to, even to their teens, and there's just not that support that I think many of us who are in the middle class are used to. They don't have a mom to call when the child is sick. So really it's helping them develop those support systems, so that they're not going to lose their job because their child is sick. So it's really looking holistically at everything and helping them kind of think through, is this the job that I want? Am I taking it right now just so I can make a little bit, but then I'm not going to be able to sustain the housing because it's not affordable? So, there's just so many things that our service staff look at holistically with a family.
And case managers, whether it's community action or other types of social services, best practices, for example, to sit down with the client and go through their monthly budget and annual budget. And so they will actually create budgets with clients and say, okay, where are you spending your money? Can you make ends meet here? What does it mean if you're going to get paid more in this position? So they will walk through in detail all of those things.
Have you been involved in the legislative discussions on a low-income rate? Because that is a proposal that's been out there for a couple of years. It got really close one year. I've been a pretty vocal advocate of it, as others, I think, on the commission as well. And it just hasn't been. And the last draft was drafted with the utilities. They were, at least my understanding, they were fine with it. there just wasn't that push to get it across the line. And I mean, how involved have you been with it?
This is for the water and sewer rates?
Well,
or-
at one point it was just for water, but at another point it was for all utilities.
Jeff did notify us of one of those bills this past session, and I think it's our intention to get more involved if legislation like that is filed again.
I would strongly advocate for that. 'Cause I don't think as drafted there was a lot of opposition. It just needed a little more push.
Sure. And I know, like I mentioned earlier, there's so many bills filed, as you all know, in the session. It can be hard to figure out where the focus areas are going to be and what's going to have the ability to have a big push. But if there is some momentum behind that, it's definitely something that we want to help push forward.
Who's your representation?
Luann Madsen? Well, let's move on because I know your all's time is limited. So you've all seen this PowerPoint, so we won't go through these next couple of slides in detail, but the poverty rate in Missouri did increase after the Great Recession as things got worse. And then as the economy improved, you can see that the poverty rate has definitely decreased almost to where it was before the Great Recession. So we're at 13.4% with the last U.S. Census Bureau estimates that came out.
Where does that put Missouri?
That puts us a little bit above the national average, which is like 12.7%, so slightly above the national average. Not huge, but just a little bit. And the new U.S. Census Bureau estimates will come out in September, so in just less than a month here, they'll come out again, and we'll be following those closely. And then we
Does that poverty assessment affect the block grant?
It does.
In Missouri, it definitely
The
does.
census does.
Uh-huh.
And then there's safety data, which I think you're going to talk about.
And that determines how much each state gets.
Each agency.
Each agency.
Well,
So-
about each state. Is each state, what's that based on? Per capita or?
It's been flat. It
Well,
was
the dollar, so each state gets the same dollar amount? Rhode Island and New York get the same amount?
no.
Okay.
It was established in '98, and what was established in '98 has been flat since then.
Is that per capita? Or, I mean,
I don't know how they figured it back then.
And one issue that we are having with the CSBG funding at the federal level is that this 98 date is when it was last fully authorized or reauthorized. And since then, we've been working on a continuing resolution every federal legislative session.
Yeah.
So that's part of the issue and why we're where we're at. And so our national lobbyist is really pushing a bill to fully reauthorize CSBG this coming year. And we're hopeful that we can get that
That
through.
would reset the
It would
dollar
have the
amount.
opportunity.
It would.
Yeah. And then here in Missouri, as Dawn was saying, the way the CSBG dollars are looked at is partially by the poverty level and the poverty data. So it is used at the state level from Staff at Family Support Division to look at how much money is going to go to each of our 19 agencies. So one thing we always like to bring up quickly is the official poverty rate versus a supplemental poverty measure. Most of the programs at the federal and state level, like SNAP and TANF, use the official poverty level, but that was determined back in the 1960s when the war on poverty first was started, and it hasn't really changed since. And so in 2010, the U.S. Census Bureau came out with the supplemental poverty measure, which takes into consideration a number of different expenses. But unfortunately, that newer poverty measure is still not used to define the limits for some of these programs. So there is a push among advocates to figure out, can we have a different way to define poverty so that more people who really truly are in poverty, like our family we talked about earlier, would be eligible for some more benefits. So I always like to bring that up as well, just to put some things in perspective.
and so that's not even indexed for inflation at all. I mean, it's the exact same dollar amount. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's three times the cost of a minimum diet to establish that poverty rate. And I do not think that it is indexed, and you can see here it's the same in all regions, no matter what. So it's very problematic.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I need to get off the phone now.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you, and thanks for the presentation. Very interesting. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
So then moving on to our poverty rate by counties, just to give you all a sense, we talked about the 13.4% poverty level. So you can see here, it's hard to see, you actually maybe can't see here, but in your packets that Jeff handed out to you on the left-hand side, there is a printout, so you can see this better if you want to look at this later. It's also in your PowerPoint, but it will show you the poverty rate by county, particularly if you're from a certain area and you want to look at that, it can be really interesting. Definitely the Boot Heel is an area that really has a high area of poverty, and that's been something that's going on for a long time. And we have 3 community action agencies in that area of the state that do a lot of great work to help address those issues. Jeff also had the great idea to show what about the poverty rate in areas served by the utilities. So we broke those down based on data that Jeff provided to us. So you can see here we have all of the Ameren counties. I didn't do the average for those counties just because it's a huge swath of Missouri. So the average would not be probably as meaningful as some of the other utilities. If we then look at the GMO counties, which is the next slide here, I did the average for the poverty rate in those counties. It's 14% for that service area. Then we've got KCP&L. The average poverty rate in those counties is 12.8%. And then we move to Empire in Southwest Missouri, and that's where the poverty rate gets higher. We have an average rate of 16.2% in the counties served by Empire. So you can see those differences when you take just a few counties here and there, how that might change the poverty rate and what that means. And so I don't necessarily have granular data on this, but it certainly would be interesting to look at. Are there more folks applying for LIHEAP or weatherization in those particular counties that have a higher poverty level? And my guess is that there probably would be. So with that in mind, this is a good jumping point to turn it back to Dawn, and she's going to talk about LIHEAP and weatherization and how our agencies work on that here in the state.
So on the next slide, you'll see our pie chart there. It talks about the LIHEAP program specifically. And there were 165,403 unique households who received assistance in the last, this is the 5-year data. So from 2013 to 2017. What we do throughout the state is track those households, and again, they're all unique. So while a household might qualify for a benefit more than once within a heating season or a cooling season, they're only counted that one time within that year. So what this data tells us, our 5-year data, is how many times did people come back each year to receive that benefit. And what it shows us is that 79% only accessed the program 2 years or less, with nearly 60% of them accessing it just that first year they needed it. So our data shows us that within a 5-year period, and every 5 years we track this same data. What it shows us really is that our customers are typically needing that one-time assistance and to just get them through that season. And of those who actually do rely on it for more than just the 2 years, 75% of those households have elderly individuals in them and families with young children or disabled individuals. So living on that fixed income really does require more, I guess, reliance upon agencies to help when you're in a financial crisis. So the next slide also just kind of goes over that same information. It's very similar each year. If you break it down, that 75% of those who do receive LIHEAP are in a household that has an elderly individual, a disabled individual, or very young children.
The big elderly, disabled, or young children. The young children is, how does that break down between those 3?
So we don't have that data split up. What we know is that households with children under the age of 5 before they go to school are typically more vulnerable because they don't often have the resources to pay for childcare, to work, so they're not financially stable. And I believe that's why they lump that in together.
What's the correlation between those that are no longer needing the assistance for a year or two because the kids have reached school age. Is there any?
I don't think we've drilled the data down that far. It's not something that we couldn't do, though.
We had actually considered bringing in, what's Heather's last name? I can't think.
Heather Jones.
Heather Jones from Missouri Department of Social Services, who does LIHEAP. But that's information we could probably tee up. She's got
Absolutely, yeah.
she's got it.
You don't need to do any expert. I will sit here and have all these questions about stuff
fine.
that just is.
I mean,
my
these
own
are
understanding.
these are questions that we ask ourselves every year. When we're looking at that data and working with the state on making sure that those LIHEAP dollars are getting to the communities that need them the most. And what we see time and time again over the last 40-some years that LIHEAP has been available to low-income households is that it really is the elderly and the disabled that rely on that benefit.
And I'm going to go off topic here again. So going back to your map of those that had the smallest, because I know that I'm in the NECAC area, and I know that there's a tremendous amount of local support for them. How does the amount of local dollars and the local things compare to the regions and their need? Are the ones that have the lowest need receiving the most local support due to social economics of the region, or how is that? I'm sorry.
Do you mean local support in terms of from the utility?
I mean, just in general. I mean,
Just
just fundraising, various different, grants from the local. Here's $1,000 from Schnucks or from Ameren here and there and stuff. In those, it's like, what are the budgets for the various different NECACs when you compare them, or do you pool money and then send it back out, or is it what NECAC raises they use for their community versus what happens in Kansas City?
Yeah, they're all their own 501c3s, and they serve their region, so they have their own budgets, and there's typically a pretty small percentage of that budget that comes from private dollars and donations.
And it's one thing that we've been talking a lot with our agencies about in recent years is determining, and this is really a thing in nonprofit in general, is figuring out how nonprofits can be less reliant on federal and state funding and find more private sources of funding, whether it's foundation, corporate support, or individual donations in the community. And I think our agencies that I've seen are really great at getting smaller donations from community partners, $500, $1,000. It's when it comes to some of the larger buckets of money from private funds that I think we're still working on, and they're still brainstorming ideas of how they make that happen.
I will say, and the folks in the room can probably confirm, that utility companies and the relationship between CAAs and utility companies in their regions is started off strong. It's been strong for quite a while. I can only speak to my time in Kentucky and my relationship with the utilities there, but LIHEAP certainly did not come close to meeting the need for those who are in a crisis in terms of their utilities. And our partnerships with the utility companies, we would receive dollars from them to be able to assist families who were facing a shutoff.
Can I give it just an anecdotal example? We've had all three of our electric utilities have really stepped up to the plate. Both KCPL and Empire, as a result of the merger acquisition cases, had agreed to go ahead and utilize some shareholder dollars to re-weatherize. Unbeknownst to me, and I found this out fairly recently, Ameren, Missouri did the same thing in NEAC, as well as several other different community action agencies. But it's their shareholders went ahead and allocated dollars just for re-weatherization, which is what I mean by the re-weatherization. And this was an issue that came up in the Ameren gas case. Under DOE guidelines, if a home was weatherized within the past 25 years, it can't be weatherized again. A lot can happen in 25 years. A lot does happen in 25 years. But having that money that's not tied to federal and state allows that flexibility to go ahead and meet, emergencies and needs. And really, hats off to Ameren in that case, because they really stepped up with some donations.
And did Ameren do that after we had Empire and those?
They did. They did.
In your opinion, would they have done that if we had not?
I didn't ask Ameren to do it, which I've nothing but praise, honestly. I found out about it I'm trying to think how I found out about it. Ameren didn't tell me. I'll put it that way. I had to inquire, and it was the CAP agencies themselves. It was Carla Potts from NEAC. Because we were asking for language as to how to draft the tariff so it would give flexibility to the community action agencies. And she told me, well, we could use the language that Ameren had suggested to us. And from there, I found out everything.
And speaking of weatherization, that's another way that community action agencies help families reduce their energy cost burdens. In 2018, Community Action weatherized a total of 1,400 homes here in Missouri at an average cost of $9,788 per home. And the LIHEAP transfer to weatherization provided $7 million to weatherization assistance program, and that allowed another 715 homes to be weatherized. For every dollar spent on the weatherization program, there's a $2.78 return to the local economy, which is 278% ROI, which is fantastic. Local communities keeping that money within the community. So at this point, I think, I would like to end our presentation, but also open it up for questions. But before I do that, we would love to extend an invitation to you and the utility company in the region where that's available. But we have some of our community action agencies and service districts that would love to have you come do a tour. If you're interested in seeing a weatherized home, seeing how LIHEAP works, just kind of seeing how we do energy efficiency and help families reduce their cost burden for utilities and energy.
So weatherized, I've seen many different things. So when you're saying weatherized home, what do you mean?
It's a little different for each home, but they're going to do myriad of cost-saving measures. For sometimes that means installing a new HVAC system or a new furnace, or getting the ducts sealed and sealing away the leaks, the air leaks that are coming in. They do the blower door test each time, and they assess what that house needs to make it more energy efficient.
So they're doing a blower door test on every home?
Mm-hmm. And the hope would be that if we can find an agency that's currently working with a family to weatherize their home, that the tour would include the home in the process of being weatherized. So you could perhaps even see the blower door test live if you haven't seen one before.
So the idea is that we were thinking of a community action agency out of Columbia, a sort of a central location where we could invite all the commissioners, their advisors, and even customer experience staff to go through that. We'd extended that would fall under Ameren Missouri service territory, and we'd actually had talked to them in that regard. But as you can see from the slide, these are everywhere. So if it's easier to do it out of St. Charles or Kansas City, I think we're amenable to that.
So help me understand, putting in a new HVAC system is going to be much different than wrapping some pipes for hot water and stuff. And so is there a cap per home? How is it decided that, they need a $3,000 HVAC unit and these people get, some insulated foam for their, around the windows? So
Right.
How does that work?
There's a very thorough process to be approved for it, and you might even be able to speak to this a little bit better, but also maybe.
It is. Each home goes through a cost-benefit analysis. There's a waiting list, so there's it will vary The waiting list obviously vary between counties. In general, when we talk about cost-effective test, it's a different threshold than what we utilize here for MIA. There's a DOE threshold. The big things that can cancel out that are health and hazard issues. So if obviously you're not going to put an HVAC into something if there's a huge hole in the roof, right? The huge hole in the roof is going to cancel out that HVAC savings. Likewise, if there's mold or something that really is a health hazard, that's sort of a double. That's a catch-22 though, and I use the mold example is that in a situation like that, it might be just mold within a kitchen area, which would just necessitate some bleach to go ahead and clean up. But if that's been identified, that would be a walk. They couldn't do anything in that case under DOE guidelines, and that's where the reweatherization dollars come in and say, okay, go ahead and use the bleach. Then we can do that. It's an unfortunate level of bureaucracy that's inherent in the process.
So is there anything in the program that's hampering it from being more efficient? Like, is a homeowner expected to put up so much money in advance, or is NECAC or one of them have to put up money in advance and it's all reimbursed later? And is there a barrier by how the program is designed and the rules that we have to implementing the program?
I think we're addressing some of those barriers, and it really is the first singular barrier for me was moving off of those DOE guidelines. The feedback that I got from the community action agencies is, having more freedom to go ahead and do that gives them the ability to get those homes done. Because we would get into a situation where we would get the numbers at the end of the quarter and say, all right, well, you weatherized X number of homes, but you haven't spent all this money yet. Why aren't you spending this money? So, well, these are the reasons why. The other barrier is going to be more site specific. So the issues that Kansas City or St. Louis deal with is going to be different than what a rural part of Missouri deals with. And I would say that the big issue in those cases really, I guess for both, is just having good personnel, having enough people to go ahead and do the homes. Doing this kind of work is highly technical. And it's not just somebody that you can just pick up off the street and they can go out and start weatherizing a home. You're going into somebody's living space, and there's a degree of precision that's required to make it happen. Because of that, if we had one community action agency where somebody got into a motorcycle accident, boom, that's like 50% of the workforce, and that's going to set back all of those homes until you can get somebody to go ahead and fill that spot. In that case, that meant taking workers from another county into that county. Those are the realities that you operate under. That was the idea initially behind the reweatherization dollars and having those corporate social responsibility dollars, is that they would be tied to job creations. That we would essentially create two jobs within, or a job within those creative community action agencies to help spend down the money. If they didn't need that, then it would be dollars that they could otherwise spend at their discretion. But I think we're getting there, is the really short answer to my earlier longer answer.
From an agency perspective, it is very specific certifications that you have to qualify for and certify for to be able to even do the work. And agencies struggle with getting folks trained up in a timely manner to be able to go out and do those assessments and do the work. So, and then keeping them once they do, because then they have certifications that are more marketable, that they can go out onto, and work for an HVAC company that can pay them more. So, there is some inherent flaws within the DOE guidelines and the way that they put that system together. That does make it difficult for CAAs to weatherize all the homes they needed.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman, you have any questions?
No, she's done.
Oh, she's gone already. All right. Well, I have no questions.
I have one last one. What's the status of the low-income pilot project that we have with Missouri American working for you guys?
St. Joe.
Yeah.
Last time I checked with Brian LeGrand, it's up and running. They're getting people signed up and utilizing it.
My understanding is it's not being utilized very much at all. tiny, tiny, tiny numbers. And
Honesty and corrective.
well, and my understanding is that when we first instituted it, we had a somewhat higher customer charge, and so the program takes, I think, like 80% off the customer charge. But then we lowered the customer charge in the next rate case, which greatly reduced the incentive to, the value of the program. And so, is there anything else on that?
Is this? I'm getting my issues. Is this the one out of St. Joe or is it Mexico?
St. Joe, Mexico was the
Inclining block. Okay, I was speaking about inclining block. All right. We'll follow up.
Yeah, we can definitely follow up with the staff at Cap St. Joe.
I think I can't obviously speak for the whole commission, but I think there's a much interest in looking at low income rates. A statutory fix would certainly give us more freedom there, but then the connection between a low income rate and value to all ratepayers through a reduction of shutoffs, et cetera, is really something that could be valuable.
How is Pace and Pays playing into anything that they're working, especially on the weatherization side?
It's not yet.
Well, thank you all so
Yeah,
much.
thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate all the questions. I love to hear them.
Thank you for bringing this.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
We'll leave some of our cards here. This is my card. Dawn can be
I did
reached
not
at the same
bring mine,
number.
sorry.
So I'll pass these down. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, that concludes all the business for today's agenda. So we are adjourned.